So we're back at Old Hall, and this is where I hooked a fish on the very first cast last week. A lot of pin fry in the water, as there are everywhere. I've seen a couple of fish moving just in the still water around from the point, so I thought I would give it a go. Although it's still, I can just throw a fly in and just hope that it's crystal clear water, so if a fish comes a cruising, it's going to see the fly and hopefully it might take it. Don't really have to cast that far. Last time I was here, my cast was rubbish and I got a fish, so just get enough out to get it out past the bank and then we'll just leave it for a little bit. Yeah, that's fine, that's exactly what I want it to be, and then just wait and see if a fish comes a taking. The fish I saw rising was more over there, but if there's one over there, they're probably in this whole area, so let's just hope. It's warmer than I thought it was going to be today. I'm actually quite glad of that breeze when it does come. Got a dry daddy on it. Seems to be the fly that is working pretty much everywhere at the moment. The only fly that seems to be working at the moment. The last fish I had that wasn't on the daddy was here last Monday on the gold ribbed here's your suspender. Weather's been really changeable in the last couple of days. Not half as changeable as it was last week, going from baking hot to cloudy in the space of a couple of days. It's been consistently warm, but the wind's been changing direction quite a lot. I was out in the boat on Tuesday and we fished every single spot in the South Arm, all the bays, couldn't catch a fish. I turned a few fishing up at Green Bank on the dry fly, but it doesn't fish well in this wind. I mean, there are fish there, but they weren't interested. They were kind of coming up and having a look, but not taking it properly. Tiny little flies in the air, I don't know what they are. Could be the dreaded canis. They look too small actually though. And if you look in the water, I don't know if you can see this, there's a little pin fry in amongst the rocks. Not massive shoals, but they're now about, what, half an inch long? So they're starting to get to the size that a fly would represent. And they've got some colour, they're not those tiny little translucent things anymore. I fished in New Zealand Bay this morning. It was dead. The wind's changed direction, it's now blowing straight into the bay. I had 2 cracking fish there last night, and there was lots of fish rising, the same pattern as previously. They were kind of coming in and around the bay, but then today they've just switched off completely. I think the change in wind directions just put them down. But there's not that many fish on the surface. I thought there would have been more. It's quite a nice warm afternoon, the ground's warmed up. There is a lot of insect life about, which you'd have thought would have brought them up. But so far I've seen 2 fish boiling here. There was a lot more fish moving in and around here last week. But I think we are getting to that time where the fish are starting to move into the deeper water. The nice thing about here that's different from New Zealand Bay this morning is the water's very clear here. It had a slight amount of colour in it this morning, and I think that was enough to switch the fish off. The pin fry were still there because I saw the terns feeding on them. I think the shoal that was in here has gone. I don't see any evidence of them on the surface. I'll bring this one in gently and then I think I'll throw one. I'll move a few feet down the bank and then throw one. Now I should be fishing in a completely different spot now. Get that line off the boulders. These boulders really are treacherous, but if you go into the water, it's a bit there's a lot of algae and moss on the boulders, which makes them very slippery. And unfortunately, these Wellingtons that I've got on aren't the ones with the. I've got a pair that have got spikes on the soles, but I'm afraid these aren't those. No, there's nothing really moving in here. I started fishing here because I had seen a couple of fish rise, and I thought if I put the fly in the right place they may take, but they're not going to take. So I think I'm going to go and fish the point. To the nymphs. Let's take advantage of the ripple. I always like to be in the water a little bit. Not for the extra distance, it's basically to get my line in the water. I hate having my line on those boulders. I can never really tell what's going to happen with it. That fly's sitting exactly where I want it. It's sitting just in the rippling water of here, and it'll probably come round into that shallow water at some point. Now what I'm hoping for here is fish that are moving up the reservoir. They move up the reservoir, they see the dry fly in the surface film, and they grab it. I think that was a fish further, yes it was. There's a fish further out there, probably about 50 yards out. It was on the surface, so I may have to move around a little bit more just to keep the fly in that. Oh, there's one. Now that one is in the exact, oh, there's that again. So there's a feeding fish moving up. Now is it coming this way? Oh, it's moving in the right direction. That looks like a nice fish as well. This is what I love about dry fly fishing. You can see the fly and you can see the fish. And it's that anticipation, watching the fish and thinking, is it going to come near me? But that one is staying out there. It's not coming in towards the point. Now, I would have thought it would have done. I also don't need to really do anything with that fly. It's sitting in exactly the right spot. Oh! That fish is within about 10 feet of my fly. And it's moving in the right direction. Oh! That's at the fly! No, it hasn't taken it. It boiled at it, but it never took. Now, has it taken this time? No, it's just attacking it. It's not taking it, it's just looking at it. That fish went for the fly twice, but didn't take it. Now, I'm just moving the fly a little bit to see if... That was interesting. The fish came up, had a look, but didn't take. I deliberately didn't strike because I knew it wasn't on, it was just looking at the fly. That's intriguing. Has that fish seen a dry fly before, or I've no idea. I've talked a lot about phantom takes. I think that was a phantom take in action. And I normally find that when that happens, that they will take at some point. Fish just round the corner there. Now that'll be feeding on the pin fry. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to cast into the shallow water roughly where that fish was, in the vicinity of that fish that literally has just risen round the corner. And I can see that fly sitting really nice and proud above the water there. Oh, that fish is really close into the side. Now that's after the pin fry, those little pin fry that we saw. That's what that fish is feeding on. Now my dry is sitting in a nice little ripple there. That fish is still there. It's right there. I don't know if you can see that. That fish is right there. I'm going to try and throw a fly over it. I've never done this before. I've never cast at a fish 2 feet from the bank, but let's give that a go. We don't know. I apologise if you can hear the profanity from the chaps out in the boat. It's certainly not a word that my mother taught me. Now we've tried this spot. That was nice to get that fish that took a look in the deeper water, but I think I'm going to move further around to the deep water now. I may end up going to the nymphs and the fab, I think, we'll see. There's just not enough of it here. This is what happened the other night. I just wasn't happy with the way the fly was fishing in the wind. the same again tonight.
How's it going, John? You alright?
Yeah, I'm fine. Can't buy a fish today. Completely switched off.
Nothing doing along here.
No, nothing at all. It must be something to do with being Scottish. Everybody that's recognised me from the boat has been Scottish. Wind's changed a little. That's coming more north west, which is where it was supposed to be coming from. When you ask the competition anglers how they're doing, you never get an answer. Oh, there's a fish out there. But it's about another 20 feet further out from my fly. That was a nice fish. It was very streamlined. That's again out in the deeper water. Now if you're in the boat, you can just pull your boat in, just put the boat into reverse, move back a bit and you've got a chance of getting that fish. That's exactly what they're doing. They're reversing into where that fish was moving towards, probably hoping that there's a shoal of them there. That wind is really forgiving. I can get the fly out quite easily. Not too much effort. Do you want that cloud to come over that? Makes it twice as hard when it's bright like this. There's that fish around the corner again. It actually looks like there's more ripple coming up from the bay now. It's more comfortable. And I think that's where I'm going to go next. Change the fly and fish from that point in the bay because the wind... Oh, that fish is right next to my fly! In the last 5 minutes, the fish had just suddenly become a little bit more active in the surface. There was 2 off the point there, plus that one in here. Now that fly's fishing really nicely and it's in the right spot where I would expect a cruising fish to be. And we've seen a few coming through, but they're not coming through in large numbers. Well, I think we've got some rain coming. I welcome the dark cloud, but I'm not so sure about the wetness that it brings with it. The wind is now back to how it was when we started. But I'm not moving that fly because it's sitting in the right spot. I really should have switched to nymphs, but it feels too bright. I'd rather just take my chances with a well-placed dry fly. I'm not seeing the number of fish that I would have expected here today. It's quite a nice gentle breeze, temperatures are pleasant. I would have thought there would be more fish showing on the surface. There's that fish on the corner again. Now is it the same fish, or is it that the fish are coming up past this point and then round? There it is again. Now if that keeps coming around this way, it might go past my fly. I can see the Midas, it's sitting there really nicely in the water. Now they've moved right past me there. The Midas was too far out. I was worried about that. And that one's moving back towards the Midas. Water is crystal clear. But I'm not seeing the fishing activity here that I would have expected. So I'm going to go back into the bay. There's a lovely little spot close to the car park. And I have a feeling that might be the spot. I saw a fish rising here and I'm hoping this rain will give me a little bit of cover. I'm hoping it's not going to last for too long because I don't have my waterproof gear with me today. But this bay feels more fishy than the point. I'm going to give this thing a bit of movement. And I hope that the fish thinks it's some kind of terrestrial that's been blown onto the water and is struggling. I don't think we're going to get the fish on the surface today. It just doesn't feel like it's going to happen. Oh, that was a smasher of a fish. But just that bit further out. That was an absolute corker. If that one would come a little bit further in, that would make life interesting. There is a bit of ripple now that we didn't have before, and the wind is taking the fly out, which is nice, so we're just going to hope that big fish comes in a cruising.